So today we're going to do an interview with the good doctor, Dr. Terry Foster. Terry has a very, very long career in writing about brewing and brewing history, as well as brewing himself. Terry and I have been friends for what, almost 30 years, Terry?
Something like that. Maybe it's longer, I don't know.
We
It
met.
certainly seems that way.
We met judging a home brewing competition for a cable TV show, right?
Right, in Milford. Yeah.
I remember clearly being nervous to meet the man who wrote the book on Pale Ale. And he looked over at me and said, Jeffrey, first let's decide if it's a good beer, and then we'll worry about the rest. And that was a sentence that spawned a long friendship. Terry's been a bit of a mentor of mine over the years. So what I want to do is ask Terry a few questions, and let's see what he's been up to. So Terry, you been busy doing anything lately?
Well, right now what I'm doing is a load of research into Bridgeport Brewery pre-prohibition, where we have been very lucky to get some brewing books that were filled out at the time. Very time consuming because records are not great in that era, but I'm just coming down to the stage where I've got all the research together and getting ready pretty soon to be writing it. I'm not helped at the moment by the fact of the pandemic. I can't get in the Bridgeport Library to look at things.
That's got to be tough.
So
So a little background on this information. Actually, this information was found in the attic of a house right here in Stratford. And originally, the gentleman who found it, it was his great stepfather, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
He brought the information down to the Two Roads Brewery. And after getting bounced around from person to person, my good friend Dan Zeke, he walked up to, and Dan said, I'm not sure this is something that Two Roads would be interested in, but I know the guy. Danny gave me the gentleman's phone number. I was at his house in less than 2 hours, and we now have literally thousands and thousands of handwritten documents from many of the breweries in Connecticut, not just Bridgeport. Primarily, it's about the Hartman Brewery and the Bridgeport Brewing Company, but it spans the Yale Brewing Company in New Haven and ends up back in New Haven at both the Rex Brewery, which became Staley, and then at the very end with Whaley, correct?
that's exactly right, yeah. Also involves a few other things like, my mind's gone blank, the Old England Brewery in Derby, and the Connecticut Brewing Company, which was a combination of several breweries in Bridgeport. These people worked all around. They seemed to be quite a network of relationships with 4 or 5 different families moving them around.
It's really not unlike the early days in craft brewing, where kind of everybody knew each other and everybody helped each other out. Everybody knows the story of Rob Leonard and I being brewers from way back. Rob was one of the brewers at the New Haven Brewing Company and then at the New England Brewing Company, and my first real brewing job was at the New Haven Brewing Company. And we've helped each other throughout our careers, just like it seems like this gentleman, Alphonse Gauche and Jacob Reichel, did a lot of working together. The information starts way back in the 1880s and brings one of them through brewing school and then into brewing into Connecticut. So it's really fascinating stuff, don't you think, Terry?
There's a hell of a story there because it's at both ends. Most of these people were immigrant families in the late 19th century. But then it goes on as they go on and they become prosperous. And then all of a sudden, there's prohibition and the brewing business is gone. Breweries failing, people out of work, looking for other jobs, and then what happens then? Those that actually survived and made enough money to go through prohibition, the Great Depression came, and then some of them finish up in very menial jobs later in their lives.
Kind of sad.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Now you have
big double whammy for a brewer.
Oh, absolutely. I think we're in the middle of a little something like that right now.
Right,
aren't we?
yeah.
Now you also have a book that's either just gone to press or about to go to press.
About to. It's due to come out next September. A book on barley wines, focusing solely on barley wines, the history of them, how they developed into a style, and an explanation of what that style really means. And then, of course, what goes into it, how you brew them, and then a load of recipes for those to brew at home, using both all grain and all malt extract.
So
There's 60 recipes in the book.
So if you're a home brewer or a commercial brewer, Terry's books have always been helpful. One of the things that was always impressive is when Terry and I would visit breweries, they didn't give a crap who I was. When I said Dr. Terry Foster was here, and they'd be like, the guy who wrote the Pale Ale book? And I'd be like, yeah. And then they'd run and get the brewer, and they'd always have a copy on a shelf, and Terry would sign it for them. It's been a lot of fun, both learning from Terry and hanging around with him for the last 30 years. I think that there's a big future in craft beer. I mean, there's a lot of breweries out there now. A lot of people could use your help and maybe should buy a couple of your books. What do you think?
At least 2, probably 3 or 4.
Copies of each, is that what we're
Absolutely.
talking about?
Yeah, right.
So today we happen to be brewing a beer in our Cute Fat Kid series, which started off as a barley wine 5 years ago, and we've done variations of high alcohol beers, imperial stouts, double red ales. Today we're brewing actually a double brown ale, and if you go back several years, anything over 7.5% or 8% alcohol, we brewers would just call that a barley wine.
Right.
So the Cute Fat Kid series is a series of different styles of barley wine, and that's something that you should look forward to here at Brewport coming around Christmas time. Terry, you got anything else you want to add?
I don't think so, because if I stop now, I'll never stop. It's just been a very interesting part of my life to brew. I started off as a home brewer. And brewing and writing about beer for what was secondary for me. For many years I worked in a job traveling, selling mining chemicals, not selling, but testing mining chemicals all over the world. And writing beer books was secondary.
So
But it was a passion. It was, the seed was in me,
yes.
and I've never dropped it.
In the 70s, he wrote Dr. Foster's book on beer, and you can still find aftermarket copies of that on Amazon. And frequently, someone will buy a copy and then show up here at Brewport looking for Terry to sign it. That's actually the book that Papazian used to base his Joy of Home Brewing on. Since then, Terry's also written a novel, which is called The Hydrometer Code.
Exactly right.
That's also available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon,
And
ebook and paperback.
And his brewing books that we have in front of us here are available right here at Brewport. So the last thing I'd like to say, Terry, is just it's always fun hoisting a glass with you. Much like Tuesdays with Maury, I have Fridays with Terry. So come on down any Friday afternoon. You may find Terry and I sitting at a table and hoisting a pint. So cheers.
Cheers.